Over the years, one of the most common questions I have received is about the role of fevers.
Oh, that's easy. Cats were born to give 'em to chicks.
When I was training as a doctor, we were taught to view fevers as a red flag, something that meant the body was in trouble and was potentially in a fight for its life. But is this really true?
Yeah, pretty much.
First of all, what does fever mean?
We all know what a fever is, Bailey. Stop patronizing everyone. Seriously, she goes on about this for about 3 minutes. And it's all stuff like this.
In old times, fevers were diagnosed by touching a patient's body, for example their forehead, but these days it is generally done with a thermometer.
Like what, is she talking to 5-year-olds here? Yeah, this video was really difficult to sit through, and it's all because of Sean1M, who requested this video on the Discord supporter channels. Thanks a whole heck of a lot, Sean. If you'd like to torture me by making me sit through a horrible video to debunk, just go to Patreon or Subscribestar and donate at the $2 level.
With the average being 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius.
This isn't even correct! It's a popular factoid going back to the 19th century, but most of us have moved on a bit since then. The actual number as we currently measure it, which is usually orally, is 98.2 degrees plus or minus 0.9 degrees. More and more it's being taken from the tympanic membrane, in other words the ear, but the thermometers are calibrated to match what it would be orally. For some people, 97.5 is normal. For others, it could be 99. It all depends on what your normal baseline is. But even then, it varies. It's generally higher in children and lower in the elderly, but it can even vary day by day and even throughout the day.
However, the medical establishment has a dim view of fevers.
Yeah, they're generally concerned when your immune system has to fight something off. They're funny that way.
When I was a hospital doctor, some of the ward nurses would page me urgently to take blood cultures if a patient's temperature hit 38.5 degrees or 101.3 degrees Fahrenheit. However, if the patient's temperature was 38.4 or 101.1 degrees Fahrenheit, then they didn't expect me to take blood cultures. It had nothing to do with their overall condition. It was all based on an arbitrary temperature cutoff.
If this is actually true, you need to be sued for malpractice. No, they do not do it this way. There's no diagnostic procedure where a fever alone would mean you do or don't take blood cultures. The nurses were probably smarter than you and actually knew what the patient had. Pro tip, next time you're in this situation, it's called a chart.
The medical dictionary then goes off the rails when it states that fevers are primarily caused by viral or bacterial infections, such as pneumonia or influenza. Here they are getting into germ theory nonsense.
Yes, everyone, she denies germ theory. And you thought I was just being snarky when I said most of us had moved on from the 19th century.
By blaming conditions on microbes. It doesn't matter whether they are known to exist, such as bacteria, or not shown to exist, such as viruses.
Oh, for the love of Mike, viruses have been shown to exist. We have pictures of them. See, here's poliovirus. This is influenza B. Here's SARS-CoV-2. This is a bacteriophage. We have pictures of viruses. How much more shown to exist can you get than pictures?
It is fallacious to blame microbes as the cause of illness. If you are not yet familiar with this issue, you can watch my video, Germ Theory versus Terrain Theory.
Terrain theory? Is this woman a naturopath? Seriously, why does she call herself doctor? I looked, I even went through her website, and I couldn't find a CV or anything. The only reference to any degrees I found was on her About page, and they were a Bachelor of Medicine and a Bachelor of Surgery from the University of Otago. It just says she worked as a doctor, but doesn't mention any doctoral degrees. There really isn't even that much medical. It's all about her being a writer and a TV presenter. Anyway, Terrain theory is the darling of the naturopathic hucksters. It's based on the long discredited ideas of 19th century scientist Antoine Béchamp, a rival of Louis Pasteur. The weird thing is that Béchamp didn't deny the existence of germs. He believed that if the body's pH is lower, it'll attract germs, and higher, it'll repel them. Of course, there's absolutely nothing about the body's pH that has anything to do with it, so his ideas went the way of phlogiston. Now, I don't want to get on Béchamp's case too much. This was at a time when we were still discovering these things, after all. And a lot of his ideas were good. Only a tiny minority of germs cause issues. Most of them do absolutely nothing to us one way or another, and many are actually beneficial. It's also true that the overall health of the patient is going to have a lot to do with how well his body can fight off a disease. So even though it's a few specific pathogens that cause issues, they don't always cause issues for everybody. A very significant number of people who got infected with SARS-CoV-2 never developed COVID, for example. It has to do with a lot of factors, including overall health, respiratory health, age, sex, if you smoke, all sorts of things. This is all part and parcel of modern germ theory, but nutbars like Bailey here will have you believe that their very existence somehow refutes it. Modern terrain theory says that our overall health picture is like a terrain, and as long as the body maintains a healthy terrain, it'll be healthy. If not, it'll manufacture viruses and bacteria itself somehow. Plus a lot of crap about balance, and cancer can be cured by buying our supplements. Yeah, it always seems to come down to that, doesn't it?
This is an area where mainstream medicine has to make up fairy tales.
Yeah, I'm calling that a projection confession.
For example, when they say, fever is an important component of the immune response, though its role is not completely understood.
By you, maybe. Fever does a lot of things. A lot of viruses and bacteria are inhibited by the higher temperature. White blood cells become more mobile. It makes it easier for them to engulf and neutralize the pathogen. It increases T-cell production. Lots of things.
They make up a story about magical chemicals reacting with their imagined invaders in order to make some cells to fight them.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, do I even need to say anything to respond to that? Does anyone think that this is anything resembling an intellectual examination? And she goes on like that for another several minutes, full of the same weasel words and well poisoning. And I'll say it one more time. Cutting to clips from pop culture is not clever. It means you're stupid and you're lame. If you can't refute the concept intellectually, just shut your mouth. But then you wouldn't make money selling books and supplements.
They say that fever commonly accompanies serious illness in returned travellers, and the most common life-threatening tropical disease associated with fever in returned travellers is malaria. This is simply scaremongering.
Then why is there an immense amount of consistency with all the various aspects of malaria? Why are the areas of high malaria risk associated with populations that have the sickle cell mutation? And why did malaria basically disappear from the southern US when they went to very extreme measures to destroy the species of mosquito that carried it?
I can tell you firsthand that New Zealanders are well known for travelling around the world, and despite plenty developing fevers, virtually none get close to having serious, let alone life-threatening illnesses.
Can I see your peer-reviewed observational study on that? Didn't think so.
The initial focus in evaluating a febrile returned traveller should be on identifying infections that are possibly life-threatening, treatable, or transmissible. Again, this is pure fear-mongering.
You know, you can't just write off any statement you don't like as fear-mongering.
And a backwards way of looking at things through the distorted germ theory lens. Firstly, implying to someone that their fever could be life-threatening.
It's not the fever that's life-threatening. It's the illness that's causing the fever. You treat causes, not symptoms.
Then focusing on identifying, quote, infections leads them down the garden path with a variety of tests that may be positive but do not reveal the underlying cause of disease.
Which is, I guess, an imbalance of the humors or something. No! The pathogen is the cause! Why do you think antibiotics work so well? What are those vaccine things all about? How did they eliminate smallpox from the planet?
I can give you my own first-hand experience from around a decade ago during one of my pregnancies. I developed a low-grade fever and was, quote, tested for toxoplasmosis, which came back positive.
You ate something you shouldn't have done!
This, of course, caused a great panic because of the so-called risk of congenital toxoplasmosis. However, no Toxoplasma gondii was ever isolated and found to be invading my body. The diagnosis was based on antibodies detected in my blood.
Yeah, because that's just as good. Why would you have antibodies for Toxoplasma gondii unless you actually had an infection of Toxoplasma gondii?
Suffice to say, the detection of various proteins called antibodies in an assay does not mean that you are, quote, infected with anything.
Why would you have an antibody that neutralizes the precise protein structure of T. gondii unless it's actually to fight off T. gondii? Doesn't that seem the tiniest bit unlikely to you?
The CDC goes on to provide a table of clinical findings and select associated infectious diseases. Many of these concern entities that have never been shown to exist as claimed, including HIV.
Showing you HIV right here in a false color scanning electron micrograph of a CD4 cell infected by HIV. The HIV virions have been colored in yellow.
Zika.
Yep, got those too. They're the ones in red here.
And, quote, viral hepatitis.
Yep, got that one too. These are easy to find. How much do you suck?
They are the invisible scapegoats, imagined viruses. The reason for fevers has actually been known for a very long time. They are nature's efforts to cure.
Yes, to cure, among other things, infections!
However, the medical system has created an industry around fever that involves largely redundant investigations and potentially dangerous interventions.
Like? She never says. Taking Tylenol for a fever is a potentially dangerous intervention?
Dr. Ulrich Williams wrote in the 1930s,
That's another darling of the naturopaths. It's basically a conversion story where Williams had a flourishing practice as a surgeon, but all of a sudden he had a powerful vision where God himself revealed his miracle of the human body, which has everything it needs to make itself well. I'm not even making that up. After that, pretty much his sole treatment for everyone was lifestyle choices that basically amounted to puritanical Christianity.
this sort of wisdom has been ignored by allopathic medicine.
Gee, I wonder why. Must be a conspiracy.
It is a false paradigm, as the entities do not exist. Instead, the body has various ways of responding to toxic insults.
I hope you got a lot of ways to respond to toxic insults, lady.
Fevers are not to be feared or suppressed. They are to be welcomed as a sign that the body is correcting its status, and these processes need to be encouraged.
See, this is what these bozos do. Doctors will tell you that you don't necessarily want to bring down a fever because it's performing a function. If the fever gets too high or it's too uncomfortable for you, then yeah, bring it down some, but keep in mind your hypothalamus is doing it for a reason. Naturopathic quacks like Bailey here will take this idea, which no doctor disagrees with, and then turn it into some amazing principle that allopathic medicine completely ignores. Understand? They are lying. I'm going to link to the archive of Naturopathic Diaries since a lot of the same kind of thing is covered there. Read it, and you'll see that naturopaths know perfectly well that they're shoveling it, but they have to keep the scam going.
Mainstream medicine will often prescribe drugs that reduce fevers.
No, they won't. In fact, they'll generally tell you not to worry about it unless you just want to ease the symptoms. But for the most part, they'll tell you to just let the fever do its work. Unless they've done something else like giving you antibiotics so you can fight off the disease without needing a fever.
It is best to fast. Fluids can be taken copiously in the form of purified water and dilute citrus or fruit drinks.
Okay, so yes, take a lot of fluids. And it doesn't really matter what form the fluids take, so just take whatever helps you feel comfortable. But do not fast! This is that old feed a cold, starve a fever wives' tale that dates back to the 1500s. Again, we've learned a thing or two since then. Well, most of us have anyway. Your immune system needs energy and nutrients to do its job. Generally, the advice is to just keep to your regular diet, but there's usually less to worry about when you're sick. Your body needs calories, carbs, and electrolytes, so don't do the usual cutting down on those. And there's some good data that you might want to supplement certain nutrients like zinc. As long as your stomach can handle it and you're not throwing everything up as soon as you eat it, then get those nutrients and calories.
The same fasting process applies for children.
You'd think this wouldn't be a controversial statement, but parents, do not starve your children!
Typically, they only require a brief fast, and it can be done safely at a young age.
No, it can't. If anything, children are going to need more food than they normally take in.
For example, one of our sons was unwell with a fever.
Yeah, there's a lot of this in the video. We did something horrible to our kids and they turned out just fine.
The whole idea during a fever is to flush as much waste as possible from the body. The fasting and increased fluid consumption helps to clean the system.
The fluids do, but fasting doesn't. You'll be able to get through it a lot better if you have the calories and nutrients. And this is another example of what I was saying earlier. Any doctor will tell you to get plenty of fluids to flush out all the toxins you get from the illness. But these charlatans will take that idea, pretend it's their own, elevate its importance, and stick on their own bunko that's gonna do nothing but harm. Do you understand the tactic now? Watch out for it.
Sometimes enemas are required.
Enemas are never required, and they can be dangerous. Do not do them. Even when you do need to completely cleanse the colon, like for a colonoscopy, doctors prefer other options long before they get to an enema.
It will never cease to amaze how clogged up people can get.
Although an enema or a colonic might loosen an individual's stool, it won't fix the problem that's causing the constipation to begin with. Figure out what's causing it and take the appropriate kind of laxative.
Sweating is fine as the skin is using this mechanism to get rid of toxins.
Oh, for crying out loud, you do not sweat out toxins! Sweat is for temperature regulation. Sweating out toxins is a complete myth. And the methods they use of inducing sweat can be dangerous and even deadly.
I'm pleased to announce that Dr. William's wisdom is about to go back into publication, and next week I'll be launching our new book, Germ Theory. His work from the mid-1900s is so brilliant that we hardly had to change a thing.
Yeah, would you be comfortable if you went to a doctor to have something treated and he said he was just going to use medical knowledge as it existed in the 1930s?
If germs are so terrible, why do these acute so-called infective disorders yield so dramatically to fasting and simple elimination?
They don't. Treat most of them that way and the patient will die, you horrible sociopathic scam artist!
If the germ were the relevant factor, fasting would surely be fatal.
And it often is. Don't do it. In fact, don't do anything this stupid woman or any of her other naturopathic cronies try to con you into doing. So thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.